Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Pele Yoetz. We are still on the letter Aleph, and we are on the chapter entitled Strength of Character. It's a relatively small chapter, but it is strong, hence the name. And it states, Strength of character is a vital necessity for the service of God. A person violates the will of his maker in several things due to his weakness of character and pity. And he's going to explain what this means in a second. And he says, a good man will balance his matters with justice according to the Torah, and he will not deviate from that which the Torah and its sages have commanded, either from the right to the left. Now, we spoke about this before. When you have this trust built up with the sages that you've learned from, it's like the same thing where when you have a friend who has really had your back and has been down with you for everything, and you know that you're in a situation now and they tell you something and you just do it simply because you trust them, because you have that relationship, and you wait for the explanation later. It's the same thing with the sages, that once you've built up this trust with them, you will just do what they tell you and wait for the explanation later. This is the same reason why we received the Torah from Har Sinai, because we did, and then we asked later because we trusted Hashem. We had already had that relationship with him. So we said yes. We raised our hand and said yes. So it says, behold, a person sees in his friend something which is unbecoming, and because he has pity on his fellow's dignity, he places his hand over his mouth. Likewise, sometimes he is concerned about his own loss of pleasure and flatters another. For this and other similar things, all sicknesses will be worsened. So this is a problem that I think everyone has either gone through or still going through. And, we have this tendency that we see something that our friend is doing. Now, mind you, he said friend. So this doesn't pertain to somebody that you just met like 5 minutes in. I think, 5 minutes in is not the time you want to give a musar to somebody, you just met, and you don't know anything about them. You don't know where they're holding, what their story, nothing. Because we're talking about people that you know, and you know they're doing wrong. They're doing wrong. And yet you're going to put your mouth over your hand over your mouth, and you're going to say nothing, right? Because we don't want to, there's a time and a place where you always have to be mindful. Even when you're saying something, even when you're giving a musar, you have to be careful about the way you're saying it. But there's times that we see our friend doing something outright wrong, and all of a sudden we're frum. All of a sudden we are, the best student of the chafetz chaim. All of a sudden, we're the best student of the chafetz chaim. And all of a sudden we become frum. And we know that a person is doing wrong, and we say nothing. It's like we're culpable to what they're doing. So, Harav is saying this is not the time to be doing that. There's a time for musar. Just the same way there was a time to discipline our children, there's a time for musar. And when we see something that we know is wrong, we have to speak up. So it continues on, it says, that which our sages of blessed memory noted is well known in Mishlei 12:10. The mercies of the wicked are cruel. They also said in Eruvin 21b, on the verse in Shir Hashirim 5:11, black is the raven, you will not find the words of Torah, but in one whose blackness blackens his face upon them like a raven, and is someone who makes himself callous unto his children, and the members of the household like a raven. Moreover, it is written in Mishlei 23:13 through 14, do not withhold admonishment from a youth. So now we're going to back to this paragraph, because this paragraph, you may be like, what? I didn't get it. So let's just go back. Let's dial it back, and let's find out what Harav is saying. So first we got to understand, why is he bringing a comparison like the raven? So the raven is very black, right? Hence the name raven. That's where we get the color from. And when it has its young, it's not the same color. It's a different color. And I believe the color is like a white. So when the raven sees it, it says, this can't be mine. This can't be my offspring. We got the wrong nest. This isn't ours. So they leave the baby. To fend for themselves. And Hashem, in his mercy, does a nest, right? Because ravens are not extinct. So when you hear this, you're like, oh my gosh, poor raven. But Hashem does a nest. He goes, and these little babies, they cry out to Hashem. They cry to Hashem, and Hashem in his mercy, he allows it from their excrement that worms come out, and they This is how the ravens are fed until they themselves, get to a point where they are strong and obviously able to fend for themselves. And this is also how they get the black color themselves. So, but what does this mean? What does this mean? Because we got to apply this today's to our here and now, right? What does this mean for me? So we talked in previous chapters about excessive talking with women, especially your wife, when you're trying to go off to shul, right? And, I'm guilty of this. Not anymore, but I used to be guilty of, you don't want your husband to go and leave you. And, and we also brought up that, in the past, especially when Harav was writing this, Harav Papo was writing this, men had to travel out to go and learn, and they weren't just gone for like overnight. Sometimes they were gone for years at a time. So this, of course, brings up a hardship for the wife. But today, in this day and age, we don't really have that problem the way they had it in past years, in our ancestors' times. We're relatively, we enjoy the fact that their shuls, relatively close. And even if they're not close, they're still within a distance that you can drive to and get back. And the same thing for work. A lot of people, the majority of people work in an area where they are back home within the day. So even if there's people who are out traveling, even with this, there's ways to kind of communicate in ways that were not possible in years previous. But what Harav is saying about this is that now when it comes time for the study of Torah, you have to be like the raven and you have to leave. You have to go. And women, we cannot, we can't hold our husbands up. They are doing an important work. They are giving you your Olam Haba. They are working for your Olam Haba as well as their own. Very important work. And it is hard. Believe me, I've been there. I've been with the children all day. I've been there. I get it. But, your spiritual work, that's, this is what we're working for. This is our whole purpose here is we're working to build our Olam Haba. So men have to kind of put their foot down in this and be like the raven and say, no, I have to do this. I have to build this Olam Haba. So it says again, we're going to repeat the last sentence. It says, moreover, it is written in Mishlei 23:13-14, do not withhold admonishment from a youth. This is probably one of the biggest problems in homes today. And we're going to get into it. And this is going to be like the last paragraph. It's going to be the grand finale. And hold on to your tichlos and your shaitels. This is going to be tough. So it says, with your staff you should punish him, and you shall save his soul from the netherworld. The masters of moral perfection wrote that mothers display longing for their children and prevent their husbands from punishing them. And it says about such women, the verse in Ichah 4:10 says, the hands of the compassionate women cook their children. So first off, because for everybody who's hearing this through the broadcast, we understand that the women of Am Yisrael are not cooking their children. Okay, but when this goes out to YouTube and everyone else in the whole world hears this, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, did you just hear what they said? So let me explain this to you. We're not gonna have a mistranslation of the same way we had with Moshe, having horns on his head, and then all of a sudden all the Yidden supposedly have horns on their head. The women of Am Yisrael are not cooking their children. Okay, we're gonna explain what this means in a second. But this is a big problem, a big challenge, because I myself even told you we had one child we were very firm with and one child we were not firm enough with, right? And there is always this child in the family for a lot of us where we, for whatever reason, we have too much compassion. We see that they're doing wrong. We know that they're doing wrong. And for whatever reason, we just co-sign the behavior. And Abba is ready to go and lay down the musar, and we're interrupting. We're saying, no, don't make a big deal. Don't hit him. It was a mistake. He's a baby. He doesn't know, blah, blah, blah. Mistake. You have to give musar to your child. You have to give musar to your child. And where it's appropriate, if you have to give a patch, you have to give a patch. Now, in its proper context, we spoke about this before as well in the love of sons and daughters. You cannot, first of all, if you don't know how to give proper musar to your children, this is not something, I don't know where the idea came from where you have a child and all of a sudden you know what to do. No, you have to learn Derek Eretz in this, like everything else. And this is something I wish I would have known, It's like one of those things. If you knew then what you know now, how different life would be. But I'm telling you now, if you yourself don't know, if you don't have the kind of personality that has a lot of patience with children, you really need to find a Rav who specializes in Shalom Bayit and understands how to rear children and how to give them the proper musar and when not to give the musar. And you have to learn these skills, or you're really, if you don't learn them now, you're going to be paying for them later. Promise. That is a promise. That's signed, sealed, and delivered. If you don't deal with your child and his bad behavior now, you will be dealing with it later. And I promise you it will be more costly later. So this is something well worth your time to really make sure that you've got under control. And it says that their misplaced pity causes the child to inherit Gehinnom in the end. So, you're not doing your child any favor. And Harav is saying that in the end, it's going to lead him to Gehinnom. Even without this, the wise man has eyes in his head, and his heart is strong as the warriors to keep and fulfill the words of Torah and its sages, as is proper to be done. A man who acts in this way is considered like a disciple of Avraham Avinu, even though he was merciful. He was a merciful father, included in the attribute of kindness. He acted cruelly toward his only son, who was born to him in his old age, and he took a knife to slaughter him in fulfillment of God's will, relative to the killing of his son or his own self-sacrifice. Everyone should seem insignificant, and he must not turn away for any reason or person. This is what a person should remind himself in order to refrain from any wrongdoing or fulfill any good deed. This is the whole of our existence. So I told you this was a small but really packed a punch. No pun intended. But when we see things going wrong in our friends, we can't. This is not the time to be frum. And again, we're not saying that when you meet a person for the first time, even if you don't have a relationship with a person, you're not the one to be given musar. You're not the one to be given the musar. If you have a relationship with this person, you know how far you can go. But you can't stand by and just let and really co-sign the behavior. You can't, because that person only gets worse, right? And my grandmother, she told me a story recently. It was a very sobering story. And she told a story about a woman that we knew. And her child had passed away. Lo Aleinu. It should be, we should never hear stories of where parents are having to bury their children. It's one of the most devastating things I think any person can ever go through. Especially, it's one thing to lose a person, to lose your own child. It's so devastating. But she told me this story. And I had known about the person who had died. And we were told that the person had passed away, that her child had passed away from an illness. And only to find out later on that indeed the child had passed away because he had been in drug abuse. But even in that, my grandmother said that even in the end, she could not face the fact that that was the reason why her child passed away. She could not face the fact that he had been on the wrong derech for so long that it literally took his life. And my grandmother said something, very wise. And she said, you cannot turn a blind eye to when your children are doing wrong. You cannot turn a blind eye, because this could be the end. This could be their end, and in some way, then you become complicit in that, even though that's not your intention. And, we talk about wanting to take on the attributes of Hashem. And Hashem is, he has said, he admonishes whom he loves. He does give musar to who he loves. And we also have to do this. But again, we have to learn when is the right time to do it. And with our children especially, we cannot turn a blind eye. It will be their downfall in the end. And it's a horrific story. It's a horrific story. This should never be the case. So again, if you don't have the skills to cope with a difficult child, or you feel like if you know that there's a lack of discipline going on in the house, that's also a form of abuse, you have to find a Rav who can help you with this, who can help you. It is, I don't know why this is, and I myself suffered with this with one of my children, and I was very candid about that I said we gave too much musar to one and not enough to the other. And I gotta tell you, even he, I mean, Baruch Hashem, he's like, coming around, and he's coming around, but he had like a hard road to get there himself. It's very difficult. And so Hashem should help all of us, because this is I told you, it was a short paragraph, but it packed a punch, and it's very difficult. But we cannot, it's well worth it for you to learn this now, as soon as you can. And if your children are like mine, where they're already adults, then you have to be candid. You have to throw yourself on the sword, and you have to say, I was wrong. You have to learn to say when I was wrong. And for sure, I've done this with my children. I said I was wrong. And of course, when you admit you're wrong, and you show that you have a sincerity in looking for the derech emet and sticking to the derech emet, people are much more willing to forgive you, and they understand that this was an error in judgment, but that you yourself are trying to better yourself. And that's all we can do. We can only try our best, but we just have to cling close to Hashem, and Hashem is giving us the road, the roadmap to the derech emet through the sages. Well worth it for you to heed Harav Papo Alav Shalom in his advice to us in this area. So that's it for today. And I want to wish you all well, and I hope we'll all be together again soon. B'ezrat Hashem.